Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. The first time I stepped into that boardroom, I already knew how it would go. Carpet too clean, badges too polished, men too loud. My clearance badge hung low around my neck, laminated like everyone else's, but no one looked twice. I stood by the back wall, right hand gripping the side of my tablet, watching a dozen CEOs and military brass argue about artificial intelligence like it was a new religion. They weren't listening to each other. Not really. And they sure as hell weren't looking at me. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The chairman of the American Tech Regulation Council, my father, cleared his throat like he was announcing a verdict. "Let's have the translator confirm that," he said, not even glancing at me. Just waved a hand behind him like I was a coffee runner. "She's here for language transitions, nothing more." He knew my title. He knew exactly what I was. He just didn't want anyone else to know. My name is Leona Carmichael. I'm 41. I work threat response for the Department of Defense, specifically sub-intelligence in cybernetic war zones. My badge might say linguistic asset, but I'm not there to decode words. I'm there to validate what's really being said, even when it's buried under 5 layers of obsolete code and ghost protocols, which is exactly what happened 10 minutes in. One of the execs, a stiff-backed guy from the Eurasian Coalition, started speaking, not in English, not even in modern streamlined protocols, but something older, legacy format, dead dialect from the early AI stabilization years. Everyone froze. I watched it unfold in real time. National security reps flicking through tablets, searching for patch notes or signal matching. Even the council's lead algorithm was stalled. It couldn't parse the data structure. I stepped off the wall. No one asked me to. They just kept fumbling, pretending it was a signal error. But I knew that cadence. I knew the layers beneath it. That code wasn't just old, it was weaponized, designed to filter trust through machine-only recognition. I walked straight to the center of the room. The exec stopped talking midstream. Everyone turned. "What he's saying," I said loud and clear, "isn't a proposal. It's a conditional surrender protocol, with terms silence, then shifting, heads turning." My father blinked. I looked directly at the coalition rep and spoke. Not a translation, not a summary, a direct response in the same rare dialect he'd used. His eyes widened. And just like that, the whole room remembered I wasn't the coffee girl. The meeting ended in a tangle of awkward silence and sudden protocol chatter. People shuffled their papers faster than usual. Eyes avoided mine. My father didn't say a word. He just tapped his tablet and walked out like the room wasn't still echoing from what I'd just said. That's when the man approached me, tall, lean build, close-shaved head, gray button-down, quiet shoes. "You're Leona Carmichael," he said, like he was confirming it for himself. "Director Al-Sharif would like to see you." Now I didn't ask how he knew me, just followed. We didn't take the elevator. He led me through a side-access stairwell, badge swiped us past a red-secured panel, and opened a steel door with no label. Inside, low light, no screens, no wireless signal, nothing. Just a humming offline server rack the size of a coffin and a locked metal case on the table. He shut the door behind us. "No recordings," he said. "This room's dead to the grid." I nodded. "Good." He unlocked the case, slid a file toward me. Tash Kent, October 2010. My stomach clenched before I even opened it. Inside, printed command logs, signal maps, and a grayscale photo of a burnout substation server node. I knew it well. I'd spent 6 straight days inside that network, untangling corrupted autoscripts and intercepting a live rogue AI build embedded inside what looked like a harmless file transfer loop. Old machine code, pre-registry era. Half the techs on our team hadn't even recognized it, but I had, because it wasn't new. It was recycled from something older, something buried. "You knew about this?" I asked. He nodded. "I was with ThreatSpec at the time. Watched your field logs come through, line by line. You saw what nobody else even thought to look for. We kept the node alive in a sim environment for 5 more months. Learned more from that than a dozen textbooks." I stared at him. "So why now?" "Because that meeting wasn't about sovereignty or protocol," he said. "It was bait." I blinked. "Bait?" He leaned forward. "Director Al-Sharif doesn't need speeches. He wanted to see who could hear what wasn't said. You were the only one who responded." The air in the room shifted. I felt it in my spine. So all this, bringing me in as translator, that was the test? He nodded again. We requested you. Specifically, had to loop it through 5 agencies and water down your clearance title to get approval. My pulse kicked up. My father didn't know. No, he said. He thought you were window dressing. That helped. I stared at the file again, thumbing the edges. Tashkent was classified so deep it barely existed on the record. Only 4 people ever saw the original logs. I didn't think any of them remembered. Apparently, I was wrong. The man reached into the case again, pulled out a thin, cream-colored envelope with an old red seal, wax-pressed, sharp around the edges. I hadn't seen that seal since Kandahar. What is this? He slid it across. Director Al-Sharif said to give this to you only if the signal was confirmed. I picked it up slowly, thumb brushing the seal. No name, no mark, just the emblem. We've been watching, he said quietly. Not in a hostile way, but we've seen how you track things others miss. How you stay quiet when it's smart, loud when it counts. The director doesn't want loyalty. He wants clarity. I slipped the envelope into my inner jacket pocket. He reached for the server panel and began powering it down. This room doesn't log entry. You were never here. I looked at him once more before I left. You've known about me for years, I said. Yes, he said, and now everyone else will too. I didn't smile. I just opened the door and walked back into the silence like I'd been planning it all along. I waited until I got back to my car before opening the envelope. Locked the doors, engine off. No Bluetooth, no wireless, no cloud sync. Just the dull hum of air through the vents and the envelope sitting in my lap like a live wire. I broke the seal. Inside was a small black data tab, old format, short range, no label. I slid it into a burner tablet I kept in the glove box for one reason. No connection ports. Only one way in, no way out. It lit up with a single file. Chrono, a 06X Victory timestamp. August 17th, 2022. 3 years ago. I tapped it. Audio played. Muffled, layered with digital distortion. Background hum from what sounded like an HVAC unit or maybe a cooling rack. Low male voice, scattered words. It was the same clip I'd flagged back then. A garbage intercept dumped in an encrypted batch from an off-grid relay station in Tunisia. Everyone dismissed it, said it was a bad scrape from an abandoned server. But I'd heard it differently, because tucked in between the gaps, right before the static swelled, was a 3-tone frequency dip that didn't belong. A glitch, too rhythmic, too deliberate. No modern dialect used it. I'd logged it as possible encoded artifact from Nomad dialect version 4 legacy forks. Nobody followed up. I did. Cross-referenced it against fragmented nomadic cybersec dialects from pre-infrastructure war zones, tribes that coded outside regulatory law. It matched. I traced the signal across 3 nodes, Phoenix, Pittsburgh, and Oakland, all with dormant pipelines tied to municipal failover grids, all set to sync within 1 millisecond. It was a trigger code. I filed the alert manually, marked it urgent. I remember the response, unverified dialect signature, no threat trajectory confirmed. The attacks never happened. No one ever said why. Now, staring at the screen in my hands, I saw the original log, with my annotations, intact. My name, my ID tag, my notes in plain black system text. Someone saved it. Someone preserved a file the rest of the team threw out with the digital trash. And that someone had passed it to Director Al-Sharif. My chest tightened. This wasn't just about that moment in the boardroom. This was bigger, longer. Somebody had been tracking what I'd been doing for years. Not the loud moves, not the public wins, the quiet ones, the ones nobody clapped for. I tapped deeper into the metadata. There were 3 layers of security signature. The third was what caught me. An old DOD tag, buried deep. Masked under an Arabic phrase I recognized from countersignal intel units. Alladhina yarona fi dhalam. Those who see in the dark. They hadn't just seen what I did, they remembered it, traced it, logged every brushstroke of my work like it mattered, even when no one else cared. That kind of attention wasn't casual. It wasn't fanfare. It was surveillance. Not in a hostile way. Not like a threat, but like someone watching to see if lightning would strike again. I leaned back in the seat, hands still on the tablet, staring at my own past like it was alive. Digital fingerprints. That's what they were. Traces I thought would fade. But they didn't. They burned into the grid. deep enough that someone could follow the trail backwards and still find me standing there, holding the match. And now I had to ask myself, if they'd seen that, what else had they seen? I powered the tablet down and snapped the data tab in half. No backups. I didn't need to keep it. The real message wasn't in the file. It was in the fact that it still existed. Whoever sent this knew what they were doing. They didn't want applause. They wanted me to know. They were telling me, "We see you." I slid the cracked tab into my jacket pocket. Then I started the car, and I drove out of the garage like the next signal was already waiting for me. I didn't head home. I drove until the city lights faded and the noise inside my head got loud enough to drown out everything else. Somewhere past Fremont, I pulled off the highway and sat in an empty parking lot outside an old auto parts store. And just like that, I was 10 years old again, sitting at the edge of my father's home office, trying not to breathe too loud. He and Nate were in the middle of one of their golden hour talks, the kind that always ended with a firm hand on the shoulder and a, "You've got the mind for leadership, son." I never got that line. Didn't matter how many robotics awards I brought home or how many programs I built on our busted family desktop. My wins weren't loud enough for him. I didn't look like leadership. I looked like background. When senior year came and I turned down Stanford policy for an early placement in a federal cyber response unit, he looked at me like I'd joined a cult. "You don't enlist, Leona," he said. "You influence. You lead from the front. I am at the front," I told him. "Just not your kind." He walked away mid-sentence. Didn't even bother slamming the door. That was the last time he said anything real to me for 2 years. Not even when I got promoted. Not even when my name made internal commendations. He never said he was proud. Never even asked what I was working on. Meanwhile, Nate was racking up padded internships and soft landings. Slid into a top-tier AI ethics firm by his junior year, where he spent more time at happy hours than in server rooms. Then came Berlin. I still remember the headline, "2 dead after data breach at Allied Systems Lab." Wasn't a hack. Wasn't even that sophisticated. Just a lazy permissions oversight. Nate signed off on it. Name right there on the audit trail. There was an internal investigation, a closed-door briefing, then nothing. The report vanished. So did the bodies, at least from the press. I asked my father once, point blank, "Did you cover for him?" He didn't answer. Just said, "Nate's role in the future of diplomacy is too important to derail. But my future, that could burn." I showed up to briefings with field damage on my hands and glass cuts on my knuckles. I ran trace paths through scorched firmware and rewrote live code defense nets in real time. I cleaned up other people's messes in places no press badge would ever reach. Still, nothing from him. Not even a nod. It wasn't just silence anymore. It was erasure. Deliberate, surgical. He let me disappear into the quiet because it served him. Because a soldier daughter didn't fit the optics. Because Nate could still wear a suit and shake hands. I wasn't erased by accident. I was erased on purpose. And the part that stuck hardest, he didn't do it to protect me, he did it to protect himself. I stared at the empty parking lot, hands gripping the wheel. He'd always acted like I was the one who turned away from the family, but the truth was, I was never even in it. I left California the next morning without telling anyone. 2 flights, 1 layover, and a non-marked sedan. Later, I walked through the back door of my old agency in DC, same building where I cut my teeth in threat trace years ago. The guard at the desk scanned my face, didn't say a word, just slid me a black key card. No name, no designation. That was the first sign something was off. I followed the instructions exactly, down 3 levels, past cyber ops, into an unmarked corridor that used to be a dead zone. It wasn't dead anymore. The room I was sent to was colder than I remembered, not just in temperature, but in tone. 1 desk, 1 chair, 1 file, and no one else. I sat down. Opened the file, my own report stared back at me, the Tunisia intercept, same case, same diagram, same handwritten notes I'd scribbled in the margins 3 years ago when the higher-ups said it was non-actionable. Only now the margins were covered in red annotations. Arabic, fast, slanted strokes I recognized immediately. Al-Sharif. His signature was stamped on the last page. His handwriting circled my original threat tag, underlined the phrase signal-based deception, and next to it he'd written in English, "She sees what others skip. Use it." On the final sheet, 1 line hit harder than the rest. "No badge, no command, only access." That wasn't a promotion, that was a repurposing. I flipped the page again and saw the letterhead, Department of Defense cross-signed by two bureaus I knew and one I didn't. My name listed under Special Transfer, Tactical Signal Analysis Division. And right under that, his name, Mason Carmichael, my father, signed in full ink. I sat there, just staring at it, not blinking, not breathing. He'd submitted a recommendation for me. For this, whether he wrote it himself or handed it to a staffer didn't matter. His name was there, his signature. It felt like acid, not because I'd finally been acknowledged, but because I couldn't tell if it was real or strategic. Was this his version of an apology? Or just another shield move, like he did for Nate after Berlin? Positioning me where I couldn't be ignored, but also couldn't speak? The difference mattered, and not knowing made it worse. A door opened behind me. No knock, no intro. Same man from the server room, no expression. Just handed me a second file. Terms and clearance upgrade. You'll be working inside Tactical 3, embedded within Redshift Review, under Director Al-Sharif's discretion. No public rank, no direct team. You move alone. You move quietly. I didn't open the file yet, just stared at him. Why now? Because the window's open, he said. And some people finally realized you've been standing in it this whole time. I didn't flinch. And my father. He paused just a second too long. Doesn't matter. He's not the one running this unit. I took the file. Didn't thank him. Later that day, they walked me through the handoff. Biometric reclearance, restricted server login, 4 dead-end badge scans that all rerouted to departments that didn't technically exist. My inbox had no contacts. My desk had no nameplate. But my access? Full spectrum. Files I wasn't even allowed to know about last year were now just 2 clicks away. Power in this place didn't look like rank or title. It looked like silence. It looked like showing up without being seen and walking away with the only detail that mattered. And even then, I kept coming back to that damn signature. Not because I wanted it, because I wanted to burn it. 2 days later, I was standing across from Director Al-Sharif on a rooftop that barely looked like it belonged to DC. No suits, no cameras, no badges, just sun-warmed stone benches, a few weathered planters, and the soft hiss of traffic far below. The Pentagon sat in the distance, a quiet giant. He poured the tea himself, 1 cup for him, 1 for me, no files, no tablet, no guards. This place is older than most of the buildings in Arlington, he said. You can still speak freely here. I didn't sit. He handed me the cup anyway. I don't meet people up here unless I already trust them. Or you want them to think you do? He gave a small smile. Same result. I finally sat. The tea was hot and plain. No sugar, no herbs. What is this really? I asked. Al-Sharif looked out toward the skyline. A conversation you were never supposed to have, with a man who wasn't supposed to know your name. I stayed silent. Do you know how many hands tried to block your clearance packet? He asked. 5, and 2 of them had high-level budget influence. Why? Because you don't play by the hierarchy. You don't wait for permission. You move too cleanly, too quietly. That makes people nervous. Then why offer me a position at all? He set his cup down on the bench. Because someone made the mistake of saving your work. And someone else made the bigger mistake of reading it. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thin, beige envelope. This is what they won't put in your file. I took it. No seal this time. No stamps. Just folded paper inside. I opened it. 1 name. Handwritten. J. Nadar. My throat caught. She's alive? Yes, he said. And waiting. I stared at the paper. Years ago, Nadar and I had cleared a silent loop network in Istanbul, the kind that buried AI drift signals inside immigration traffic. She was the one who taught me how to listen past what machines said and hear what they meant. We lost contact after that mission went dark. I thought she'd been reassigned, maybe worse. She asked for you by name, Al-Sharif said, after your intercept surfaced again. I folded the paper once, then again, slipped it into my jacket. So this isn't a reward. He shook his head. It's a leash. They want to rebrand you, control the narrative before someone else uncovers it. So why are you telling me this? Because I don't like when good assets get buried for the comfort of bad leadership. I studied his face. He wasn't bluffing. They erased more than me, didn't they? I asked. Yes, he said. They erased your impact. Reassigned your intel to people with louder titles. You weren't missing from the record. You were removed from it. I swallowed the rest of the tea in one long pull. It tasted like ash. And now? He leaned forward. Now they've realized you're not gone. And they're scared. Not because of what you might do, but because of what you already did that they ignored. I didn't ask who they were. I didn't need the names. I already knew the signatures. Al-Sharif stood first. No handshake, no salute. Just a quiet nod. Find her, he said. She'll show you where they buried the rest of it. I didn't respond. Just stood, tucked the name inside my jacket, and walked toward the rooftop exit. One truth was clear now. I hadn't just been overlooked. I'd been buried on purpose. And now that I was breathing again, someone, somewhere, was counting the seconds. The first red flag was the payout code. Buried deep inside a routine humanitarian manifest routed through Zurich, old NGO cover name, matching an orphan think tank that hadn't updated its charter since 2015. Supposed to fund food distribution into Jordan, but the money trail didn't match the manifest size. Too much sent, too few vendors logged. I ran the back end. The real destination? Ammon. Private drop. Sealed clearance signed off by a strategic outreach division I knew didn't even exist last year. The name of the original founding partner on the funding board? Nathan Carmichael. Of course it was. I dug deeper, past the financial firewall, into the metadata of the internal memo authorizing the transfer. That's when I found it, a 3-line summary block. No logo, no timestamp, just plain text. But the structure, the phrasing, was surgical. Contain optics, minimize forward trace, preserve sector continuity. Nobody outside of a specific diplomatic school used phrases like that. Nobody except the people trained directly under Mason Carmichael. He didn't write the memo, but someone who learned from him did. And in this circle, that kind of fingerprint was deliberate. So I called him, didn't send a request, didn't use protocol. Just showed up at his Georgetown townhouse, the one with the gated courtyard and the security glass that looked like it was meant for embassy checkpoints. He opened the door himself. "Leona," he said, like he wasn't surprised, like I was just there to drop off old books. "We need to talk," I said. He stepped aside without a word. I followed him into the office. Same mahogany desk, same angled shelves, same untouched plaque for Nate's Cyber Ethics Contribution Award that never should have been awarded to begin with. I dropped the printed memo on his desk. He didn't even read it. "I know you didn't write it," I said, "but I also know your cadence. You taught that structure." He didn't flinch, just folded his arms. "I advised the funding route. That's all to protect Nate? To protect stability," he said. I stared at him. "That's what you call laundering dead weight through ghost nonprofits?" His jaw tightened. "You don't get to erase consequences," I said. "Not for him. Not for me. Not anymore." "He was under pressure," he said. "What happened after Berlin?" "He nearly collapsed." "So did the grid," I shot back. 2 people died. Systems went dark. You protected him. You always do. He didn't deny it. "You were always the unpredictable one, Leona," he said. "I couldn't place you. Couldn't trust where you'd land." I stepped forward. "No, you couldn't use me. I didn't fit your script. I didn't network. I didn't smile for cameras. You went silent," he said. "You disappeared into code and shadows. I saved people in those shadows." He finally looked at me. "I know," he said. It wasn't an apology, just a fact, said too late to matter. "You think silence keeps peace?" I asked. "It doesn't. It just delays reckoning." He didn't speak. I picked up the memo and ripped it straight down the center, dropped both halves on his floor. "I won't be silent anymore." Then I turned, walked out the same way I came. No tears, no hesitation. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing he finally had to sit with the mess he made. And this time, he wouldn't get to bury it. The day after Georgetown, I booked a secure conference room inside one of the redshift floors at Langley. It was technically mine now, Tactical 3 status, and nobody above me asked why I reserved it. I titled the briefing, "Unusual Transfer Signals in NGO Cleared Assets." The invite list was short: mid-level clearance officers, 2 analysts from financial vetting, and 1 outside liaison from diplomatic audit. Nobody high enough to draw suspicion, just enough to stir the surface. Then I loaded the bait. Zurich, Jordan. the son of a regional ambassador whose name showed up twice in the transfer logs. One says strategic advisor, one says cultural liaison. Both fake roles, both tied to the Shell think tank Nate helped build. I embedded the connections into the presentation's packet metadata, not on the slides, inside the data itself. Legacy dialect markers, my kind of code. Then I waited. 15 minutes in, just as we started going through the flagged anomalies, the door opened. Late arrival. Older man. Expensive gray suit, defense lapel pin, perfect posture. Didn't sign in. He slid into the back corner without a word. Some of the younger analysts stiffened. They recognized him. I did too. Brent Callahan, former field intelligence officer, retired chief of network operations. But to me, family associate. Played poker with my father in '94. Gave my brother his first clearance endorsement at 18. He didn't look at me, just crossed his arms. I kept going like nothing happened. Clicked through 2 more screens. Then I hit the one I wanted. NGO transfer loop. Zurich to Shell org to Amman. 3 broken signatures, but the speech layer was the tell. In the metadata of the transfer note, I'd embedded a phrase from a forgotten protocol code. أول من يعلم هو آخر من يتكلم. The first to know is the last to speak. Callahan flinched, not visibly, but his foot tapped once, fast, left side only. It was a cue. Old habit from briefing days. I flagged it in my head. 2 slides later, he stood. "Excuse me," he said. "Can I see you privately?" I nodded, ended the session early, dismissed the room. He waited till the last person was out, then shut the door and turned slow. "You don't know what you're digging into," he said. "I know exactly what I'm digging into. You'll drag your father down with it." I stared at him. "You mean you will." Callahan exhaled through his nose. "You don't win this way. People like you disappear when you cross that line." "You've already tried that," I said. "Didn't stick." He stepped closer. "Leona, this won't just stain him. It'll wreck you too. Your name's still tied to his. Burn him, you burn yourself." I didn't back up. "Then light the match." That's when the second door opened. Rear access, supposed to be locked. Admiral Glenn Weaver, the same man who pulled strings for my father during the Beirut decryption leak. The man who testified under oath that my brother's breach was non-intentional and diplomatically resolved. He walked in like he still owned the place, looked at me once, then at Callahan. "This conversation didn't happen," Weaver said. "You can shut it down quietly, or not at all." "No," I said. "It's already recorded." I turned my wrist, showing the red LED blinking from the side of my watch. A secure field recorder. Real-time encryption feed running straight to internal justice. Weaver blinked once. Callahan just clenched his jaw. I kept talking. "I'm not leaking this. I'm reporting it. 1 to DIA, 1 to internal security, and 1 directly to my father." "Why him?" Callahan asked. I looked him dead in the eye. "So he knows this time I walked out first." I picked up the folder, walked straight past both of them, and keyed the final transfer sequence into the wall panel. 4 files sent, 3 copies archived. No backup needed. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. Because for the first time in decades, they were the ones left behind in silence. 2 days after the files dropped, I walked into a high-clearance panel chamber on the 6th floor of Fort Meade. 12 people sat around the curved table. DIA, NSA, foreign signals, and 2 chairs I didn't recognize. No introductions, no agenda. Just a single prompt blinking on the central terminal. State Legacy Signal Identity. Director Al-Sharif sat at the far end, calm, neutral, hands folded. Second row, far left, my father. Same seat he always chose. Not in the spotlight, not in the shadows. Waiting. I stepped to the center. No notes, no prepared statement, just 6 words. Delta 9, signal mirror, voice persistent, old machine code, buried deep inside legacy dialect used during the rogue node shutdowns in Kazakhstan. No modern panel would have recognized it unless they lived in the system like I did. Al-Sharif stood. No words, just a sharp salute. Silence filled the room like floodwater. Not a ripple, no one clapped, no one moved, but every head turned. And then, just for a second, I looked at my father. He didn't shift in his seat, didn't look around for optics. He just looked at me, really looked. And when the session ended, as the others filed out without a word, he walked past me, close enough to speak, But he didn't. He just nodded. Not as a politician, not as a father, as a man who finally understood who I was. That was enough. No ribbons, no announcements, just the weight of what finally landed. 2 days later, I was back in my workspace. Same quiet room, same unmarked clearance route, same black console, but everything was different. I wasn't there to translate anymore. I was there because someone still breathing had me to thank for it, and that was the only code that ever mattered.